Let's get you ready for week 9 of the fantasy season with the right decisions at running back, who should be in and who should be out of your lineup. Got 2 teams on bye this week. It's just the Steelers and the 49ers. There's still some running backs that you don't have to think about. You got them, you start them. These are our must starts for week 9. Joe Mixon, Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor. Before you start setting your fantasy lineup, you're going to get your picks in on Underdog. For some reason you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it. Download the app, go to underdogfantasy.com, and you get this free pick as a new customer. CJ Stroud just needs 1 yard. You get that pick, you win. Pick the higher on 0.5 total yards for CJ Stroud. And if you are new to Underdog and you use code ENDGAME when you sign up, you also get up to $1,000 worth of bonus cash in your account. So try it now if you haven't yet. All right, Chris, so in that Thursday night matchup, we got 2 stud running backs. You got Mixon, you got Breece, you're good. But what about Braylon Allen for the Jets? All of a sudden, he's reemerged. He got 12 carries to Breece's 16 in week 8. Do you now have to consider Braylon Allen if you're looking for a running back, let's say, or an upside flex?
This is still desperation territory here. I know he scored last week, but man, without that touchdown, what are you really getting? The Steelers and the 49ers are on bye. It's not like you're missing tons of stud running backs this week. I think you should be able to avoid Braylon Allen this week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that unless Breece Hall gets injured, hopefully not, Braylon Allen's still just a stash, still just a handcuff or a desperation start, and you shouldn't need to go there. And this is not a great matchup against the Texans, so I'm going to say, desperation flex, which you shouldn't need. Now on Sunday, we're going to have the Saints at the Panthers. Chuba Hubbard has fallen, just like his entire team. Well, he's not even a must start or a strong start. Is he even a start in any format with the way these Panthers are looking?
I think this week he is a start. He's going to be a flex only though for me, but it's the Saints. They're so bad. He could score. He's still getting the bulk of the touches here. I know the offense not the same with Bryce Young, but this matchup is good enough. I'll at least put him in the flex tier.
I will say it's interesting is that Jonathan Brooks still doesn't look close to seeing the field. We thought he might be, but he isn't. What I don't like is the fact that it seems like on passing downs, all of a sudden Miles Sanders is involved again. Like, what's up with that? Chuba Hubbard does not quite look like a bell cow anymore. I would flex him if you need somebody, but I would rather not start him if I don't have to. All right, another divisional matchup here between the Commanders and the Giants. Let's talk Brian Robinson Jr. not coming off a big game. Do you think he does better here against the G-Men?
Gotta think he will. Najee Harris just was running wild on this defense, ripping off big runs. Brian Robinson has mostly been good this year. He's got touchdown upside. Can't call him a strong start this week, but I think he's in my solid start tier.
I kind of view B-Rob the same every single week. He's always solid. I don't ever feel like he's going to have a huge game, but I don't ever feel like he's got a low floor because he can always score a touchdown. This offense is continuing to hum with Jayden Daniels there, so he's just solid again. Then there's Austin Eckler. He's still involved. Is it enough to make him a flex option?
Barely a flex option. He could score, but again, that's really what you're looking for here. He gets somewhat involved, but yeah, on this week, you shouldn't need Austin Eckler. I'm going to say avoid tier.
Here's the thing with Eckler. He's the type of player that you feel like he's going to be more valuable potentially if the game script works against the Commanders. I don't feel that way against the Giants here. I don't care that it's a road game. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be more of a B-Rob week than an Eckler week. Yeah, no, you shouldn't need him. Come on. There's hardly any teams out here. Let's just say sit out this one for Eckler. And just when you thought we could ignore this Giants backfield, Tyrone Tracy, yeah, have a day. Didn't just lead this team in rushing. He was one of the leading rushers in the NFL last week, and that was against the Steelers on the road. Do we have to be back all in on Tyrone Tracy?
If he's going to get this kind of usage and this kind of workload, and now it's at home against the Commanders, which, yeah, they're a good defense, but not on the level of the Steelers, we have to be in on Tyrone Tracy. I can't put him in the strong start tier just yet, but I'm going to say solid start this week.
I don't know that he'll have that kind of game again, but he's had multiple 100-yard games now. The thing I like isn't just that he got the lion's share of the touches here because Singletary was hurt or whatever. He's earned it because he's been that good. So I think he's got to at least be a solid start. So as far as Devin Singletary is concerned, does that just make him droppable?
Yeah, droppable. Definitely an avoid this week. I mean, barely touched the ball. You can't start Devin Singletary.
Exactly, and you don't really have to hold on to him either. Now, an AFC East showdown between the Dolphins and the Bills. All right, so HN thankfully has gone back to the must-start tier. Where do we put Raheem Mostert, who, well, he didn't get that many touches, but he's playing the role of vulture. Is that good enough to make him startable?
Yeah, I think because it's Buffalo, not a strong run defense, and because he has touchdown upside, again, I'm not going to say strong start, definitely not. Probably not even solid start because, again, the touches just aren't there, but he's a flex start this week.
Yeah, here's the thing. Some people look at the fantasy points and, remember last year's Raheem Mostert, but without a touchdown, he might leave you high and dry. On the road against Buffalo, I know there are worse options, but I'm going to say I would rather sit Raheem Mostert. Just don't feel it happening for him this week. On the other hand, James Cook did also score a pair of touchdowns, but he looked much better in general, and he's the lead back for the Buffalo backfield. Where's James Cook in this matchup?
James Cook, pretty much every week for me that he's healthy, is a strong start. I mean, there's no reason to doubt James Cook at this point. I know the Dolphins did a decent job against James Conner, but still not a great run defense. He's a strong start.
This is a subpar run defense. Buffalo at home. We know Buffalo owns the Dolphins. I mean, come on. James Cook is borderline must start this week. Now, hopefully this video helps you with all your start-sit decisions, but if you still have questions for start-sit, waiver wire trades, or anything fantasy football related, use the Draft Lane app because that connects you directly with Chris and myself for all your fantasy football needs. Download it for free right now. All right, next up we got the Chargers at the Browns. Let's talk J.K. Dobbins. He still owns the Chargers backfield, but that efficiency continues to dip. Where are you on J.K. these days?
Yeah, not as high on J.K. as I was earlier in the year when he was ripping off those long runs. This Browns run defense is still pretty good here, but he could always score in this offense. So I'll say, again, a flex start.
All right, man, you're even lower than I was going to be on him. I was going to say I'm dropping Dobbins down to the low end of the solid tier just because he gets the touches. He has touchdown upside. I don't love this matchup. I don't love the fact that he's not even reaching 4 yards a pop these days. But he still gets enough touches, and it's not like they're going to be running from behind against the Browns. So solid if you need him. And now looks like in Cleveland, Nick Chubb is back to owning that backfield. He's getting the touches, but also the efficiency isn't there. Against this tough Chargers defense, where does he rank?
Can't rank high. I mean, yeah, the touches are there, and they're giving him the ball, but man, without a touchdown, you're really not going to get a whole lot here. And this is a tough Chargers run defense. But he does get the touches, so I will say, once again, a flex start.
I feel like this is very similar to Dobbins, a guy who's a talented runner, coming off major injuries, getting the touches, not very efficient. It's like the same thing here, so I'll call him also low and solid start. New England Patriots going to take on the Tennessee Titans. Let's talk Ramondre. All right, how good are we feeling about him? Is last week the start of a revival here, or you think it was an outlier?
No, I think it's the start of something. He was finally off the injury report, fully healthy. Got to assume that's going to be the case again this week. Again, not a good matchup this week like last week, but he catches passes. He has touchdown upside. He gets pretty much all the touches in this backfield. But because of the matchup, I can only put Ramondre Stevenson in the solid start tier.
Might be a little too bullish here. I'd say this is the Ramondre that we expected, and we did see the first couple of games. You know, Jerry Mayo said that it wasn't just a matter of getting over that brief injury he had, but remember he had those fumbling issues early in the season that he was going on with something. There was something personal here, and he fought through it. We're going to start to see, I think, vintage Ramondre, and especially if Drake May is out. Remember, he had that concussion last week. It's going to be a ton of Ramondre, so I'm going to put him in the strong start tier this week because I think he's going to get fed. And Tony Pollard continues to get fed. I know Tyjae Spears has been out. I don't even think that matters. This seems to be just Pollard's backfield.
It does. It's not the best matchup here, but it's also not the worst matchup. He just had a nice game, 90 yards last week in a really tough spot against the Lions. Why can't he have a good game against the Patriots? Again, Tony Pollard for me is going to be a solid start this week.
Continues to be solid every week. I'll say more to the high end of a solid start, but yeah, this Patriots run defense getting up 4.7 yards per carry. Pollard getting all the touches there for the most part, and come on, it's not like the Titans really are going to have to throw the ball that much against New England. So not only am I going to say I'm starting Pollard most of the places I got him in fantasy, I'm definitely taking the higher on him in underdog, because right now, the early part of the week, you look at his pick'em, it's 68.5 rushing yards. I mean, he's done that almost every week. Definitely taking the higher against this Pats defense. You can do that too. And again, if you're new to underdog, take this pick, combine it with that free pick, got a great chance to win right off the bat. Just make sure you use promo code ENDGAME before you sign up for the very first time. Cowboys get to travel to Atlanta this week after another disappointing loss. Well, there's one running back we can feel good about in this matchup, and that's Bijan Robinson. But now let's talk about the Cowboys. So Rico Dowdle didn't play last week. Would it make a difference if he came back this week?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was just an illness, so it wasn't like an injury or anything. But, man, now with Dalvin Cook in the mix, no way I can do it. I can't touch this Dallas backfield. Avoid.
The fact that they did elevate Dalvin Cook, this was nothing to do with Rico's illness, which cropped up right before game time. This is just the fact that they don't feel good enough about him, that they were starting Zeke early in the year. They're putting Dalvin Cook now on the roster. I think you can drop Rico Dowdle and you can avoid him this week for sure. What about Zeke? He was the leader in the backfield. He did score a touchdown, but come on, it's still Zeke.
Still Zeke, and like without a touchdown, he's gonna kill you. No way. Avoid.
Nothing's gonna move us off of this. I don't think throughout this entire season. I don't think Zeke's getting younger as the days go by. Just avoid Zeke. Okay, we do have to talk Dalvin Cook. I think it was 6 carries for 12 yards last week. Does he do anything better this week?
Maybe 6 carries for 13 yards. Easy avoid here.
Wasn't worth picking up and is definitely not worth starting. You can avoid him. Now, if anything, I might feel better about Tyler Algier against this Dallas run defense than any of the Dallas running backs. But would you go so far as to flex Tyler Algier?
I think you could consider it this week. When we're talking about the guys like the Braylon Allens, the Austin Ecklers, these guys who are technically the handcuffs, but they get touches. Algier's probably the one I feel the best about because he gets a decent amount of touches. He's looked pretty good running the ball, and it's his Cowboys run defense. So he would be the one I'd feel the best about flexing this week if I needed to.
I'm with you there. I'm not a guy I'm going to go out of my way to start, but you need some upside. Again, this Dallas run defense has given up some big yards. Even when Isaac Guerrero came in the game, because Jordan Mason was hurt, Guerrero was getting some chunks of yardage. So you mainly want to add Algier, as I mentioned on the waiver video, as a handcuff, as a stash, especially if you have Bijan. But hey, you could do worse than him if you do need some upside as a flex. Now let's talk Raiders at Bengals. Alexander Mattison is continuing to be the only running back of note in Vegas, but is he really noteworthy enough?
I think he is this week. The Bengals run defense has gotten better. That interior line has gotten healthier. But it's not as good as the Kansas City Chiefs, who are like the best against the run. He'll have chances here. He'll catch passes. Could score a touchdown. Not going to put him in the solid start tier, but maybe one of the higher end flex options.
I can go there. I can go flex. I mean, I understand the matchup was brutal for him. So, all right, let's just give him a pass. The volume keeps him relevant. Let's put it that way. So I don't want to start him as an RB1 or 2 unless it's a crazy deep league. You can flex him if you don't have a better option. The Bengals backfield continues to be just a little bit aggravating. Let's start with Chase Brown. Do you think he has a big game against the Raiders?
I don't know if he can have a big game these days because even though it looks like he is the main guy or the top guy here, Zach Moss is still involved annoyingly enough. But it's a good matchup against the Raiders, so I'll say Chase Brown this week. I think I'm going to put him low end of the solid starts.
What's interesting is that even though Moss's carries are going down, he actually saw a little bit of an uptick in snap share last week. It's just going to continue to be frustrating on both ends. I'd say Brown is still nothing more than a flex. Now, as far as Zach Moss goes, well, I'm going to have to say avoid because I did say if you have him, you don't even have to keep him. You can cut him if you're looking for upside elsewhere. I can't start him, can you?
No, can't start him. I mean, he's annoying if you have Chase Brown, but he's not annoying enough to start. He's an avoid.
Broncos at the Ravens, two of the better run defenses in the NFL. Doesn't matter, you're still starting Derrick Henry. Are you starting Javonte Williams, though?
No, I mean, what happened last week against the Panthers? Jaleel McLaughlin getting a ton of touches. Javonte couldn't even score against them. What a letdown. Nah, this is not the week for Javonte. I'm avoiding.
Really frustrating. I think he got a carry or two at the goal line. Like you said, McLaughlin scored. Bo Nix, took it himself. He was close, but yeah, that was against the worst rush defense, and now he's going against one of the best. Let's just avoid. So I doubt we feel much better about Jaleel McLaughlin. You think maybe he does something as a receiver, maybe scores a random touchdown?
I mean, he always could, but is that really what you're gambling on this week? I'm not. He's also going to be an avoid.
If Javonte is an avoid, Jaleel has to be an avoid as well. And then I have to ask because, he still is somewhat involved, and Baltimore's a good offense. Justice Hill on the radar this week?
No, I don't feel like this is a game where the Ravens are going to be throwing the ball a ton in, running a lot of 2-minute drills, come from behind type of game. Again, just very desperate here. You shouldn't need that this week. He'll be an avoid.
Justice Hill reserved only for desperate situations, and this isn't one of them. Bears at the Cardinals. DeAndre Swift continues to roll. I mean, is he just a strong start every week at this point?
I don't know if I could say he's a strong start every week, but this is not a matchup that's going to scare me off him. He's the clear workhorse running back here. The only annoying thing is that Rashawn Johnson gets the goal line carries, but outside of that, it's all DeAndre Swift. I think this week he is a strong start.
Yeah, the vultures do come out occasionally, but Swift still did score. One thing that was a little bit annoying was that he wasn't as involved as a receiver, but I think that's just how that game was. I think you got Swift. You consider him a high-end RB2, so I'm going to say strong start this week. Likewise, James Conner. Now, he didn't smash last week in what could have been a smash spot. Does he get better against this Bears defense?
Yeah, one thing about the Bears, for as good as this defense is and as for good as the secondary is, they're not one of the best against the run. James Conner just, every week for me, he's a strong start when he's healthy.
I'm tempted to say, Bears defense is pretty tough, but that is a lot more against the pass, like you said. So I think he is just a strong start every week as well because he's still getting almost all the touches here. Jaguars on the road to take on the Eagles. Look, Tank Bigsby on the one hand has been really good, and he's getting almost all the carries here because of injuries and Etienne being ineffective. But on the road against Philly, this could be a tricky one.
Yeah, it's always tricky with Tank Bigsby because there's always a chance he gets game scripted out. Now, it didn't happen last week against the Packers, thankfully, but man, that Eagles offense looked so good last week. What if they put up 30 points on this Jaguars defense and he's just not touching the football? But at the same time, if it doesn't happen, he gets to work and he's looked good. So I think because I'm worried about the game script, I'll say only a flex start this week.
I mean, everything you said exactly. Road game against Philly. You remember, they just lost Christian Kirk. They might be without Brian Thomas. They still have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. I'm worried. This could be a bad game for Tank and the Jaguars offense, but Tank has been so good. He still has touchdown upside. I'll say solid, but not as solid as usual. And the wild card here also is Travis Etienne. Is he going to play? Is he not? And if he does play, how involved will he really be with Tank taking over here? What do your guts say about Etienne if he plays?
My gut says if he plays, he'll be in that pass-catching role, which might be pretty valuable this week against the Eagles. Plus, he'll still get some touches. So I'm going to also say Travis Etienne, if he finally plays this week, will be a flex start.
I'd say he could be a flex option, but he won't be my favorite flex option. Look, if it's a DFS tournament or something like that, I'll take a swing here because maybe the game script favors him. But I really don't want to take a chance on that in my fantasy lineups if I don't have to. Now we got the Rams at the Seahawks. Kyron continues to score. You're good. You got Kyron. Kenneth Walker didn't have a great game, but yeah, I think you still want him in your lineup. It's not a terrible matchup here against the Rams. But we did see Zach Charbonnet get a little bit more involved and, more importantly, near the goal line. So, do you think Charbonnet is coming on a little bit?
I don't think so. I think that was just a product of the game last week. The Seahawks couldn't do anything on offense without DK Metcalf. They fell behind. They were running a lot of 2-minute offense. Could we see that this week? Sure, because the Rams offense with Puka and Kupp healthy looked like a juggernaut once again. But I'm going to bet on the fact that DK will be back. I'm going to bet on the fact the game will be closer. I'm going to say Charbonnet, again, he's probably one of your better handcuff-type running backs here, but I'm still going to avoid him this week if I can.
Just going to say avoid because, again, you shouldn't have to dig that deep onto your bench to find a running back. Think Tyler Algier and then put him a little bit below that. That's where I got Charbonnet. And Algier is just a flex. I'm going to say you should probably sit Charbonnet if you got him. Lions at the Packers. All right, David Montgomery did bounce back and even decided to throw a touchdown because that's the way the Lions are going these days. All right, so where's Monty rank in a road game against the Pack?
Yeah, I think Monty's got to be a strong start this week. He threw a touchdown, but let's not bank on that every week, of course. But he still found the end zone last week. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like maybe he's starting to take over, but at the same time, Monty is so involved and he has so much touchdown upside. And this Packers defense doesn't scare me off of Monty. Strong start.
Monty will never be less than a solid start. Maybe never more than a strong start, but this week, this matchup, again, Malik Willis might be quarterback for the Packers. Might not be a high-scoring game. Let's say he's a strong start. What does that mean for Josh Jacobs? Look, I know after last week, you want to say you've got to start him, but we're going from the Jaguars to the Lions, a top 3 run defense. You still starting Jacobs?
Obviously, if you have one of those must-starts, you can consider benching him, but even though it's a tough matchup, we're probably going to get Malik Willis. And the last time we got Malik Willis, they ran the ball like 30 times with Josh Jacobs or something like that. I still think Jacobs is going to get so many touches. He catches passes. He's a good player. I still have to put him in the strong start tier.
You have to remember what happened when Jordan Love was out the first time this year. Josh Jacobs got fed, and he was one of the top running backs that week. And sure, things fell off a little bit. I know it's not going to be his best statistical week, but unless you're in a league, like you said, where you have 2 stud running backs already, you're in an 18 league, or you're just stacked for whatever reason, that's the only time you ever really consider benching Jacobs. So I'm going to still say strong start even against the Lions. Now let's talk Colts and Vikings. JT is back. JT looked back. You got Jonathan Taylor, you start him. Now Aaron Jones did not take advantage of a good matchup against the Rams on Thursday night, but now he gets the Colts. So what tier should he fall in?
He's got to be in the strong start tier. Played over 90% of the snaps, getting all the touches. Okay, he didn't go off against the Rams, but he still had a good game. He's catching passes. He's looking good, looking explosive. He's got to be a strong start this week.
Yeah, this is a defense I still want to try to take advantage of. And even though Jones, for whatever reason, wasn't that effective running last week, he was the only running back who even touched the ball. Ty Chandler was invisible. Yeah, Jones, you got him. You're probably going to want to start him. Let's say he's a strong RB in week 9. And Monday night, we got the Bucs at the Chiefs in Arrowhead. All right, so that 3-man committee is down to 2. Apparently, Sean Tucker, not a thing anymore. Rachaad White is now a thing again. Did have a really nice game in week 8. Can he follow it up against the Chiefs?
Well, the good news for Rachaad White is the Chiefs are a very, very good run defense, but his work is in the passing game. He's not a running back you're starting for what he does on the ground. It's for what he does through the air. And against this terrible Bucs defense, the Chiefs could be putting points on the board. The Bucs may have to throw it a lot. So I think Rachaad White, probably one of the stronger flex starts this week.
Right, I don't think we can go crazy here because game script, no matter how it plays out, Rachaad White's going to have somewhat of a limited ceiling. Again, on the road against the Chiefs, you really don't want to start a running back in general, but Rachaad White as a receiver gives you some upside. In a PPR league, I think he's a strong flex. In a standard league, maybe a weak flex. So where does that leave Bucky Irving?
I think that's going to leave Bucky Irving more towards the lower end of the flex here. Even though Bucky Irving somehow did have more targets than Rachaad White last week, he's not really the guy they go to in those obvious third down passing situations. So you can't expect a big game on the ground against the Chiefs defense. He will catch some passes. Maybe he scores, but man, no running backs are really scoring against this Chiefs defense. So a low-end flex this week.
Almost desperation flex. I like Bucky Irving. He's going to be involved. This is just the worst matchup possible for a running back like him. So only if you really have nothing better. Now let's finish with Kareem Hunt. Still the guy in KC. Now he gets to go against the Bucs defense.
Yeah, another good matchup for him here. He always has touchdown upside, but he has kind of looking like maybe, I don't know, like he's starting to wear down already. But I still think because he's in this Chiefs offense, he gets all the touches, he could score. I'll say lower end of the solid starts.
Yeah, I can't put him lower even if I wanted to, which I kind of do, but he's scoring touchdowns almost every week. This Bucs defense is horrible, so I think he's in the solid tier firmly. You know we got you covered, not just at running back, but every position with start sit advice and more. It's all here in this week's playlist.